Hello and welcome to another session on Ways with Words. Let's continue with stanza 3 of Ode to Autumn. Now, this stanza 3 begins with the poet advising autumn not to mourn the loss of spring. Now, if you look at the lines, where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Now, if you look at the stanza, the third stanza, here Keats is comparing spring and autumn. It looks as though autumn is feeling very sad. Autumn feels very sad and it is mourning the loss of spring because it is not as beautiful as spring. But Keats here is advising autumn not to mourn the loss of spring. He does this by using a literary device called ubisunt. Now, ubisunt. Ubisunt is a literary device where the poet poses a series of questions to get an answer, or he poses a series of questions so that the reader can ponder on the thought behind it. Okay, so it is a kind of rhetorical question. So here, using the literary device ubisunt, Keats is posing a series of questions to the strong and beautiful songs of spring. He says, where are you? Where are the songs of spring? And he is in fact speaking, he is in fact comparing or speaking to spring itself and telling spring that you have beauty, there is beauty in you, but every season has its beauty. So, by posing these questions about spring, he is in fact able to dismiss them. What he is doing is, he is dismissing all the thoughts or all the high celebrations about spring. He tells autumn, think not of them. That's what he says. Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. So it's like he's challenging spring season to provide evidence for its worthwhileness. And at the same time, he is reassuring autumn that it is also as admirable as the spring. Thou hast thy music too. So there is a comparison, you see a comparison between spring and autumn. Though he is not addressing directly. See, the first stanza, if you look at the first line of the third stanza, where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Is actually a direct address to spring season. Okay, here he is directly addressing the spring season. Where are you? Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? And then in a way he is challenging that season to provide evidence for its worthwhileness. And then he goes to dismiss them by telling autumn season not to think about it, not to be sad that, or not to mourn the loss of spring, because spring season is a season full of life. Autumn, on the other hand, is a season of decay. So he tells he tells autumn not to mourn the loss of spring. He is challenging, therefore he is challenging spring season. Okay, but again it is late autumn that he is speaking about. Okay, so by challenging the spring season, he is posing very intricate thoughts to his readers. Spring is definitely the season of life, of joy and abundance. And autumn is a season of slow decay. Keats reminds us that autumn has its beauty. Life without decay can be terrifying. Okay, and this decay or death or decay is a kind of rejuvenation, a refreshing kind of thing. In fact, it also speaks about the next life, the afterlife. Okay, so he reminds autumn of the great work it is doing. It is definitely the late autumn that Keats speaks about in stanza 3. The sky is becoming cloudy. It also suggests death, and not just that. Remember, look at the line, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day. So it's evening time. It is not just the day coming to an end. Autumn is normally the end. It is suggestive of the end of the year. Okay, so it is that particular year is giving way to a new year. Very soon it will be winter. So winter is normally the December time that we know of. So December is a time that is the end of the year, and perhaps it is suggestive of death. And if you look at the rosy hue, that is another very beautiful image of, or in fact the fantastical image of the setting sun. This is furthered by the sad wailing of the gnats. Now, gnats are insects in the UK that come out in the riverbanks in the evening, and there are these buzzing sounds. Notice how these images have evolved in the final stanza. The gathering swallows twitter, the redbreast whistles, the hedge crickets sing, and full-grown lambs loud bleat. So if you look at that last stanza, the images that are evolved in the final stanza, you will find a lot of sounds, the onomatopic sounds. Now, the winnowing wind of stanza 2, I want you to compare the second stanza with the third stanza. The winnowing wind of stanza 2 has become inconsistent. Okay, and the insects are lifted and lowered with this wind, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. Among the river's shallows, borne aloft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from the hilly bourne. So, the winnowing wind of stanza 2, the one that you saw in the second stanza where autumn is personified as a reaper, the same winnowing wind of stanza 2 has become inconsistent, and the insects are lifted and lowered with this wind. They live and they die. Some live, some die. In fact, this part of the poem is full of sounds of the late autumn. Bleating lambs are full grown now. Now, why do they cry? That is another thing that I want you to ponder on. Why do the bleating lambs cry, or the full grown lambs bleat? Why do the full grown lambs bleat? Now, there is another reason to it. The full grown lambs bleat, normally they bleat when the young ones are slaughtered, when the lambs are slaughtered, small lambs, tender lambs are slaughtered for their flesh. So, what happens is the parent lamb or the adult lamb, it cries, it bleats, seeing this or missing these little lambs. They bleed for several weeks, and So there is a suggestion again about death. Okay. Now crickets. Crickets are another familiar insect in the UK, and we also see the robin redbreast, and robin redbreasts are surer indication of coming winter. But if we need more, or if we needed more instances about the coming winter, Keats is ready to provide us with one. The winter birds, especially the swallows, gather together to flock together. They are in preparation for migration to warmer climates in the south. And we are left with the sound of these birds gathering in the sky as the surplus of light and warmth and food are at end. They are soon migrating. Very soon the sky is going to be dark. Very soon it's going to be very cold. So the surplus of light and warmth and food that was there till the early autumn or the late summer is soon going to end. Soon winter is fast approaching, and therefore they are gathering in the skies to migrate to the south or to warmer climates. And therefore we are left with an image of emptiness, of desertation. And just like, again, I want you to remember, or I want you to think about the first video that we spoke about, Thomas Chatterton, like the poet Chatterton's death, which was fast approaching. Just like that, the swallows also gather and they migrate to another place, and very soon this place is going to be empty. So a place which was full of life, full of sound, full of energy is soon going to be empty. So when Keats reaches the third stanza, the autumn depicted in the first stanza is totally different. He presents the picture of late autumn from the second stanza itself. Remember the half-reaped furrow, the granary, the cider press, they are all examples of slow movement towards late autumn. The first stanza, on the other hand, is early autumn. There is life. It is full of description. So if you look at this, now if you look at the poem, To Autumn or Ode to Autumn has three well knit and tightly woven stanzas that tells us about autumn and its activities. So at the base level, the first stanza tells us about the beauty and bounty of the autumn season. സന്തോഷത്തിൻ്റെയും സമൃദ്ധിയുടെയും കാലമാണ് ഓണം. ഓണത്തിനെ പോലെ ഓണം is the harvest festival. It is early autumn. So just like that, you find vines are full of grapes, the apples are ripe, the hazels with sweet kernels, the busy bees are introduced, and it is suggestive of a hive full of honey in its clammy cells. The flowers stretch at never-ending ray and are full of nectar for the bees. And these busy bees, we are told of how beautiful this season is through the busy bees, that is, and of its abundance. And one feels that this season lasts forever. So there is again a slight tinge of man's or mortality introduced. Man always thinks that he will live forever. He will have abundance of everything, youth, beauty, health, everything. But that is just a feeling, because it will soon deteriorate or decay. So in the first stanza itself, slowly he brings in that theme. Another thing that I want you to bear in mind is the first stanza. If you look at the first stanza is full of description. You have the sense, no wonder Keats is called the poet of senses. He's a sensuous poet, or he's a poet of senses. If we look at the first stanza itself, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. And you have to bend with apples most cottage trees, to fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd, to plumb the hazel shells. If you look at it, you have lots and lots of senses here. You have these, you have visual image, you have auditory image, you can taste, you can smell the flowers, you can feel the taste of the honey. So the first stanza, which is a description of autumn, is filled with imagery. In fact, Ode to Autumn, the poem is filled with imagery. So each stanza has its own different senses. Now Keats bring in different senses in each stanza. In the second stanza, autumn is personified, and it's more of a visual image. The second stanza, the imagery is mainly visual. And when you come to the third stanza, it is auditory. It's a sound, the oral sound that you have. Okay, and the second stanza depicts very typical scenes of autumn. It gives the most vivid picture of English poetry. Keats' pictorial quality is really at its peak in this stanza. We see autumn season as a being, as a person, as a woman. She's personified. So the literary device that is used here is a personification. We see reaping, winnowing and gleaning, and the autumn itself is seen doing all these seasonal activities. And in the third stanza, it tells us different sounds of autumn season. It is late autumn and winter is fast approaching. We hear the bleating of the lambs. Again, as I told you, it is suggestive of death, because these lambs are full grown. They could be bleating because their little ones are slaughtered. The songs of cricket, the whistling of the redbreast, the redbreast robin that shows the winter fast approaching, the twittering of the swallows as they are about to migrate. And thus the first and the second stanza is rich in their visual effects, but in the third stanza it is noted for its sound or musical quality. There is a complete thing about this poem. It is that's why I said it has a 3 well knit and tightly woven stanza that tells us about autumn and its activities. So that was the denotative meaning or the base meaning of Ode to Autumn. Let's dwell a little more into the connotative meaning or the deeper meaning. Autumn is frequently used in literature to symbolize old age, the time before death. And death is normally symbolized by winter. But the poem avoids any super obvious reference to death. But again, we get some subtle ones as well, like the oblivious bees who think that summer will last forever, or the hook, the hook that is there in the autumn's hand. Autumn is personified as the woman, and she is using the scythe, the hook, to reap. Okay, and the hook that spares the poppy flowers from the inevitable end, and that poppy flower feels that it will grow, but again, that's just for the moment. As the days begin to die in the final section, the entire landscape contributes to the song of death, song of mourning. So Keats slowly brings in this theme from first stanza to the second stanza, and then the final stanza proves it all. So here Keats bears in mind the life of Thomas Chatterton, the young English poet who was very young when he died. The poet who is considered the first, perhaps first of the romantic poets, and perhaps who had written the finest of romantic poems and was never acknowledged, like the autumn itself, which is the shortest in catalogue of season. That's why he says, do not worry. When he compares with season, where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? As so a challenging spring season. Don't think that you are the best. You are the only worthwhile. Autumn also is beautiful in its own respective ways. So, like autumn, which is the shortest in the catalogue of seasons, perhaps keeps all her feelings to herself. For instance, as I said, the first line of the third stanza. That environment is that of, the whole environment is mourning the loss of spring. And it looks as though even autumn feels the absence of spring, and autumn is also mourning the loss of spring. It is like, in fact, a small pep talk or pep talk delivered to autumn by Keats. That is, the speaker, the poet who knows that it is the shortest season, he feels sympathetic towards autumn. At the same time, he is full of awe and admiration towards her. And he keeps reminding her of many of its wonders, of what all good things autumn has done. The bounty of harvest, the dropping of seeds that will come or that will become next year's flowers, and the symphony of sights and sounds at sunset. All this is beautiful things that autumn has done. And all this reminds us readers of a time of decline, a time of death, which finally is essential for our rebirth. We cannot live forever. If you have just one season, it becomes monotonous. If you live forever, if you live young forever, you will grow tired of it. So, decay is also necessary. Old age is necessary. Middle age is necessary. You can't be young and youthful all the time. And we are being prepared for death, which will lead to our rebirth, that is the spring. So that is needed. You can see that from nature itself, where these fruits and flowers which have decayed and have fallen onto the earth will come back or grow under the sun the next year, the cycle of life. So here is a reference to the rebirth. Okay, so one need not be scared of death. One need not be one need not fear decay. So strangely, autumn herself seems blissfully unaware of any need to be praised or appreciated by anyone. She wanders through the scenery and examines her work with concern or urgency. So autumn is not concerned. She requires no praise or appreciation by anyone, unlike spring and summer, which is praised all the time. So autumn is busy doing her job, and it does not have time to think anything else. So autumn is a time of transformation between the growth of summer and the dormancy of winter. So life and death, if we need it as a symbol, autumn is the in-between, the decline, a movement towards sleep. So final stanza conveys this idea as the birds are in preparation to travel south to more warmer climates as winter is approaching. Winter is perhaps death to us, the human world, and a symbol or our migration to south is our journey back to where we came from. We don't know where we came from, maybe back to God, what we call it. The science calls it energy, maybe back to the energy, and religion calls it God, so back to God. Okay. So autumn is suggestive of both vitality and decline, of growth and final harvest, of abundance and loss, just like the human life. When alive, we are full of energy and potential. We gain everything we want. We are the epitome of youth at its peak, and we think it will go on forever. But slowly and subtly, time passes by, and soon we reach our late autumn period, where our harvests are ready, the new seeds neatly sown, that will be dormant in the soil till the next spring. It will remain in the soil till we are reborn. And the new seeds neatly sown would be our body. Okay, our new seeds neatly sown could be, not the body, our soul. That will be dormant in the soil, that will remain in the soil till we are reborn. Okay, or till the next spring, till we are back on this planet Earth. So, Romanticism is all about birth and rebirth. And our work is done, our responsibilities and purposes on our earth are met, and we are ready for the winter, the final sleep. So, autumn is a beautiful period. It should be celebrated. That's what Keats is speaking about. It is, so this poem is full of acceptance. Acceptance of what? Of death. Okay, so that's about it. The poem, we have completed the poem. Let's speak about the figures of speech used here. This poem is rich in imagery. This is a typical romantic poem, which is rich in imagery. If you look at the first stanza, you have ripe fruits, you have flowers, you have peas. It's full, the greenmost cottages, thatch eaves, the fruit with the vines that round the thatch eaves run. And you have the bees, the clammy cells. Summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells, flowers, never ending flowers for the bees, the sweet kernel. So, it is full of imagery, the first stanza. If you look at the second stanza, it is personified, this personification. It is the image of a woman working, she is doing the work associated with autumn season, like you have the harvesting and the winnowing. So, it is rich, again it is rich in visual imagery, like a careless woman sitting on the granary floor, her hair softly lifted by the winnowing wind, and she is sometimes drowsed by the fume of poppies. She takes a quick nap, and sometimes you would find her next to the cider press. She's patiently looking at the last oozings, hours by hours. So, these are all visual imagery and personification used here. And the third one, the image of the evening, you have auditory image, or the oral, or the sounds of autumn. The farmers return home, there is silence. From the insects, from the sound of the birds, slowly Keats reaches silence with the swallows in preparation for migration, or for their flight to the south or warmer place, which is suggestive of emptiness and silence. Then comes the let's look at the first stanza. There's a lot of alliteration used here. In the first stanza, you have miss and mellow. Then you have the flowers for they think. What is alliteration? Alliteration is the repetition of consonants. The repetition of consonants is referred to as alliteration. You have mer and mer, miss and mellow, mer. Okay. Him, conspiring with him how to load and bless. Him how. Him and how, H and H together. and then you have flowers, and still more later flowers 4, flowers F and F, until they think, T and T, see, they are all alliteration. And then you also have personification. The first stanza, you have the sun, close bosom friend of maturing sun. Who's the close bosom friend of maturing sun? Autumn is the close bosom friend of the maturing sun. So they are conspiring. Who's conspiring? Autumn is conspiring with whom? The sun. And they're thinking about ways how to load and bless, how to make the season more beautiful, how to make it abundant with fruits and flowers. So you have both autumn and sun is personified here. Autumn is the close friend, bosom friend of the sun. Okay. And you also have enjambment. Now, what is enjambment? Enjambment is a literary device which is used to, or in, if you look at the, let me just explain it to you. If you look at if you look at the line, conspiring with him how to load and bless, with the fruit vines that round the thatch eaves run. Now you understand that the line does not end there. The line does not make a complete sense there. Conspiring with him how to load and bless. Then what? Bless what? It does not complete the meaning in the first line. So that is broken, and the rest of which is used in the next line. In the next line you get the rest of it. With fruits the vine, with that round the thatch eaves run. So that is called enjambment, where half of the line comes in the second line or in the next line. Half of that line which should come together is coming in the next line. Okay, this technique is called enjambment, and that particular line is called run-on line. Okay, that's used everywhere, the whole throughout in all the 3 stanzas. You find that here, conspiring with him how to load and bless. Bless what? Then it comes only in the next line. Bless the fruits. Okay, bless with fruits the vine that round the thatch eaves run. So it is a literary device which is used. The enjambment is the continuation of a sentence without a pause beyond the line of a line, a couplet or a stanza. So here if you look at it, you will find that he has used enjambment. It is the continuation of that sentence itself, conspiring with him how to load and bless. The next comes in the next line. It is a continuation, but it comes in the next line. There is without any pause. There is no pause there. So with fruit the vines that round the thatch eave run. So that technique is referred to as enjambment, and the line is called run-on line. You will find the same in that stanza itself. To swell the ground and plumb the hazel shells, with a sweet kernel to set budding more. So from after the hazel shells, we understand that there is some more continuation. There is no pause, and the continuation is in the next line. With a sweet kernel, to swell the ground and plumb the hazel shells with what? With a sweet kernel. So it's in the second line. So okay, it's like an incomplete sentence. Okay, the continuation, not an incomplete sentence, but the continuation of that sentence is in the next line. Okay, and then you come to the next stanza, you will find the same happening in sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor. So there after may find, there is no pause, and you will find that that sentence is continued in the next line, thee sitting careless on a granary floor. So that's enjambment. And then you have the same in that second stanza itself, drowsed with fume of poppies while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. So these are examples for enjambment. You will have that in the third stanza as well. Think not of them, thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day. Okay. Then in a wilful choir the small gnats moan, among the river swallow borne aloft. So that's enjambment there. Okay. Yeah. So that's with enjambments. And next, if you look at the rhyme scheme, let's try to just look at the rhyme scheme. Now let's just look at the rhyme scheme of the poem. The rhyme scheme of the first stanza is A B, C D, E, D, C C, E. See, look at the first line, season of mist and mellow fruitfulness. A rhymes with conspiring with him, how to bless, how to load and bless. So first line rhymes with the third line. See that? A, and the third line is also A. The first line is A and the third line is A. Then you have close bosom friend of the maturing sun, which rhymes with the fourth line, with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run. So sun and run. So you have the second line is B and the fourth line is B. So A B, okay. And the next one, to bend with apples the most cottage trees is C, okay. And fill, and then you have trees and bees, look at that, and still more later flowers for the bees, and also until they think the warm days will never cease. So C rhymes with the fifth line rhymes with 9 and 10th line. So trees and bees and seas, so C there. And then, and fill all fruits with ripeness to the core is D. And look at that, with a sweet kernel to set budding more. So that core rhymes with more. So you have the rhyme scheme C D, E, to swell the ground and plumb the hazel shells. So that's a different sound, so you will put E there, E, because that line rhymes with, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. So you have two there, okay, that rhymes. So you will have C D, E, D, C C, E. So the rhyme scheme of the first stanza would be A B, C D, E, D, C C, E, okay. And the second stanza, you will have A B, C D, E, and the second stanza A B, C D, E, C D D, E. Store and floor, so they are A. Find and wind, they are B. Asleep and keep. Hook and brook and look, see, hook, brook and look. Flowers and hours, okay. So A B, C D E, C D D E, clear? All right. And then the third stanza is also the same rhyme scheme. A B, C D E, C D D E. They rhymes with day, to rhymes with hue, moan rhymes with bone, aloft rhymes with soft and croft. Aloft rhymes with soft and croft, okay. Dyes and skies. So A B, C D E, C D D E, okay. So that's the rhyme scheme for for O2 autumn. you also have hyphenated words. If you look at the hyphenate, another literary device used here is the hyphenated words. Hyphenated words, bosom friend, hyphen, bosom, hyphen, friend. In the first stanza, you have bosom friend, thatch eaves, cottage trees, o'erbrimmed. Second stanza, you have soft lifted, look at that, there is a hyphen in between, half reaped, cider press. And third stanza, you have soft dying, stubble plain, then full grown, then hedge crickets, garden croft. These are red breast. Yes, these are hyphenated words. So, then you have similes. Let's look at similes. Look at the second stanza. You have, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep. So, that is a simile. And sometimes like a gleaner. So, here autumn is being compared to a gleaner. Okay, sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep. So, that is a simile. And then you have in the third stanza, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, or sinking as. So, simile is using comparison using the words like and as. So, you have as here, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. Okay. So, there you have a simile. So, the first one here, first simile you have in the second stanza, where the autumn season is compared to a gleaner. Now, who is a gleaner? A gleaner is a person who collects fruits or vegetables that are left lying after the harvest. Harvest കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് അവിടെ ബാക്കി വരുന്ന fruits and vegetables എടുക്കുന്ന ആളെയാണ് gleaner എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So, the autumn season is compared to the gleaner. Now, here is a reference to the cider press, because overripe ആയിട്ടുള്ള apples നമുക്കത് വിൽക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അപ്പോൾ that cannot be used for anything. So, the gleaner would collect it and then take it to the cider press so that it would be pressed to make cider vinegar or or a beverage out of it. Okay. So, for that what is used? Simile is used. Simile is used, she is compared to that of a gleaner. Okay. And then you will find the same here also in the third stanza, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. Okay, that is also a simile, that is used as a simile, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. So, that is about it. So, you will find, I told you in the third stanza, another literary device that is used is ubisant. Ubisant is a literary device, it's a figure of which is used where the poet poses a series of questions to make his reader think or ponder about it. Because here Keats is comparing what? Summer and spring and autumn. Okay. All right. That's with the figures of speech, and this is a typical romantic poem. It has subjectivity, feelings, emotions are spontaneous, it has musical quality, it has lots of visual images or images associated with nature, and imagination is at its peak. So, you can call this poem a best example for a romantic poem. Okay. And Keats is a sensuous poet. Prove, if you are asked a question, prove that Keats is a sensuous poet using a poem prescribed to you, then you can use Ode to Autumn. Ode to Autumn is the best example to prove that Keats is a poet of senses, because you have you have all the senses in the or beautifully portrayed in the poem Ode to Autumn. The first stanza itself, you have it is describing the autumn season, and you have in fact it is abundant or rich with the sense of taste and smell, and also you have the visual image there. And in the second stanza, it's mostly visual. The imagery is mainly visual, because you can see autumn as a woman sitting next to a granary floor and half asleep, and she being roused by the fume of poppy, and or looking like next, or sitting next to the cider press and looking patiently like a, she's compared to a gleaner who sits next to a cider press, and she's looking at it patiently, watching the last oozings hour after hour. So the second stanza, which the main figure of speech here is personification, and visual imagery is at its peak here. And the third stanza, you have what? You have the auditory, or the sound of autumn, the late autumn. All the sounds of late autumn is well knit here. It's beautifully presented here. Okay, so we can call this poem a well knit poem, or all the three stanzas are well knit, and each stanza are in fact tightly woven, that tells us about autumn and its activities. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and keep safe.